Rescue. I'm Zack, your host, and I brought along one of my old kind of sparring partners. I mean, this goes back to like the first time I've ever really been recorded and talking sports live. My buddy Chris McConnell. It goes back to like Jordan versus LeBron debate. Do you remember that, Chris?
Yeah, boy, that was something. God,
I
that was
mean,
like
this goes
5, 6
back
years ago.
5, 6 years ago. I got Chris McConnell on the show today from Roto Bros. One of my friends, someone that's actually in a dynasty league with me. And God damn it, Chris, did you take it home this year? Did you finally take the belt home?
I finally did. I wish I had it. I wish I had it right next to me. I don't, but I would get up and grab it real quick. It's right in front of me. But man, I went through. I've been in that league for 5 or 6 years, and I went through a rebuild and finally got it done. So I'm pretty ecstatic about it, man.
Real quick before we get started, this was my first dynasty league. This was the first dynasty league, and after that it snowballed and became a fucking avalanche of my obsession in the whole dynasty format. But it was a team I took over, a scrub team that had the second overall pick, and my first pick in dynasty football was Christian McCaffrey. So the second year I was in that league, I think I took home the chip because of it. And, it's gone downhill ever since then. But, Chris, how are you doing today, my man? I'm getting excited. We're going to talk the NFL draft today.
Yeah, pretty good, man. Been a couple months since I've been behind the mic, so it feels good. I feel home. I feel great. And hey,
Oh,
what better way to get back in the swing of things than the NFL draft? A favorite pastime of both you and I. So this will be a lot of fun.
oops. I did not. Okay, so you're telling me you're a little rusty, is what you're going with. Are you a little rusty today, Chris?
I won't go that far. I won't go that far. But yeah, no. I'm definitely excited to be back for sure. So it's going to be good. Mark and I, my podcast partner on the Roto Bros podcast, we're excited to be getting things cranked up here shortly. And look, it's officially dynasty. I mean, it's always dynasty season, right? It's year round. But it's definitely when it gets NFL draft time, when the combine's in full swing. This is prime time because you're getting ready for your rookie drafts, getting ready for the NFL draft. So definitely time to dive in, get things started, and get it cranked up for the upcoming season.
Absolutely. It's like I love what you said. Dynasty football, it never ends. Like the season does not end in December, guys. In dynasty formats, it does not. It actually almost gets started because you can kind of regroup and decide if you're going to go forward with your team or if you're going to kind of break it down, kind of NBA style, where you just trade everything for picks and try to rebuild with the rookies. So we're a week out of the combine now. I want to say, how much stock do you put into the combine while looking at some of these prospects?
Not very much. I'll be quite honest with you. Not very much. I know a lot of people. A lot of people like to watch it. I like to watch the combine. And there's a couple drills that I like to see. Obviously, the 40-yard dash is, that's the one that moves the meter because everybody wants to see how fast everybody's running, especially at running back and wide receiver. And then, of course, I love to see the receivers running the routes, the quarterbacks throwing in the ball, the quarterbacks launching the ball downfield. I love seeing all that just because I'm a pure football fan. But I'm not putting much stock into 40 times, to be honest with you. Like, we knew going into this that Chris Olave was going to run fast. Okay, he ran fast. I mean, what did we learn? We didn't learn anything from that. He runs fast. Garrett Wilson, we know they run fast. But there are guys where maybe you're thinking, when it does kind of catch my attention is when you think guys are going to run 4.6, and then they end up running like a low 4.4. That's surprising because they're a lot quicker, they're a lot faster than you would think, as long as it is the official time. But for me, for the most part, like unless it's like a complete disaster or even monumentally better than what we originally thought it would be for a certain player, it doesn't really catch my attention that much. Even if it is an amazing combine, that doesn't always equal out to being a great football player. And in our case, and from a fantasy standpoint, it doesn't always equal out to being a great fantasy player. Just ask Chris Conley.
Yeah. So the thing with the combine, like when we were talking about Chris Olave, they had him at a 4.26, and then he just shut it down. He didn't run his second time, and then everybody else ran through, and then the officials came out, and it was a 4.39, which is still an amazing time. It still was less. I had him. I thought he'd be about a 4.42 guy, which is still amazing. I mean, when we see these 40-yard dashes, like that is like 4.5 is really fast, guys. Alvin Kamara ran a 4.53, so that has to tell you everything. That dude is plenty fast. So when we're running low 4.4s, it's just insane. But I didn't trust the consistency of what was going on in Indy with these 40-yard dashes. Like it's not matching up with the tape. So I don't know. I know they're official, and I've gone through with a lot of guys on Twitter that they do this like religiously, where they try to, I mean, test speed, on field speed, and everything like that. I mean, some of the numbers aren't matching up. So are these numbers even believable? Because we have Brees Hall at 217 pounds running a sub 4.4 when he's not a sub 4.4 guy on tape. And that, I mean, he ran the same speed as Jonathan Taylor. Are we even buying these, Chris?
I'm, like I said, I'm not really buying that he's as fast as Jonathan Taylor. I mean, I'm not. And again, you got to remember, these guys aren't in full pads. They don't have helmets on. They don't have cleats on. Like, they don't have guys draped all over them. So to me, again, I just kind of take it with a grain of salt. It's nice. It's fun to talk about, but it's essentially, it's the underwear Olympics. That's all it is. And it's guys working out in shorts, pretty much. That's the equivalent of it. So, I don't know what they have going on as far as these 40 times and the discrepancies. I don't know what the technology they're using down there. I don't know why people are still using. I mean, I understand scouts and coaches and GMs in the stands trying to do it, manually because they want to try to get a grip of the time, or at least get close. But for everybody down on the field, I don't know what kind of technology they're using, but there's got to be some sort of laser technology or some sort of analytic where you can get the official time immediately. Like you don't have to run a second time unless you absolutely need to. It should be as accurate as possible from the get-go. It's 2022. There's no reason it can't be. So I don't know what technology they're using out there on the combine field, but to me, something definitely needs to be improved. And I think this combine season made that more evident than really ever before. And I would imagine, hopefully, that they will go on to improve that moving forward. But, look, Chris Olave, he was clocked at first at a 4.2, and then it ends up being a 4.3. I always thought he was a 4.3 guy anyway. So, look, he's blazing fast. What else is new? We knew that. I don't care, if he runs a 4.1. Like, he's blazing fast. We knew that. So it doesn't really add anything to what we already knew about these guys. But going back to Brees Hall, I don't think Brees Hall, you watch him on film, he's not running, 4.3 time. Like, he's just not 4.3 fast. So to me, there's speed and there is football speed. There's on-field speed. And I do think they're two different things. And I think there's a lot of different examples of that. Jarvis Landry ran a 4.77. Watch Jarvis Landry's film. He's not running a 4.7. So it's like, come on. It's
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis.
341 pounds just ran a 4.78.
Yeah. I mean, and look,
Compared
that's impressive
Jarvis
for a guy
Landry.
that size.
That's insane.
That's impressive for a guy that size.
So what the most important thing about the combine to me, and we're obviously not there for the teams, I think it's the interview process / weights and measurements. How tall are these guys? How much do you weigh? So when I watch someone run the 40 and I think they weighed in a little less than what they played at, I'm thinking they're trying to get down so they can run a faster 40, so they can perform better at some of these agility drills. And then if I look at someone like a wide receiver that maybe weighed a little bit more than I thought, and then they don't run as well as I think, then I'm thinking maybe they didn't want to come in as skinny as a lot of people think. So one of the biggest things that was shocking on the measurements was that Chris Olave was taller than Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was sub 6 foot, and I had him docked as a 6'1" guy his whole career. It really surprised me. It changed a little bit what I thought the type of player he can be. even though, and we're going to get to it because I saw your rankings and it's going to be one of the first things we talk about. We're not going to get to it right this second. I just brought it up because it was a measurement that surprised me. It's the most important thing at the combine, guys. If you're not there talking with some of these guys or get the eye test, is getting an accurate reading, because we've seen like Brees Hall was under 6 foot. He was always thought of as one of these tall, Eric Dickerson type backs, and he's under 6 foot. So get these weights, see what they look like. Are they going to go out and compete? I want to see everybody compete, but it is just the underwear Olympics, man. You said it perfectly, and it all goes back to tape. So I'm going to bust out your rankings. You sent them over to me earlier.
Put them up.
I just put it quickly on a Google Doc, and we're going to scroll through it a little bit, and it did show your face like that. That's kind of funny to me. So we're going to start with the quarterbacks. And we talked last summer, and you brought up Matt Corral, and you didn't like where I had him ranked in my preseason rankings because I had him, I think, at like 8 or 10, and you told him you told me he was your quarterback 1.
Yeah.
And I didn't think you were crazy because I knew he has a little bit of live arm, and I didn't love too many of these other quarterbacks that were in the draft class. And some of them, like who I had number 1, he went back to college and actually transferred to South Carolina. So we know that story. He got benched at Oklahoma. So I can't say anything. That was my number 1 guy. But Matt Corral, he came in. He had a nice season. He's your quarterback 1. He's not going to be my quarterback 1, but go out there and tell everybody out there what you like about Matt Corral and how he can be a future NFL quarterback.
Well, first of all, I love his leadership. I love his leadership. I love his attitude. I love how gritty he is. He is arguably the toughest quarterback in this entire class. The guy's got a lot of mobility. I mean, he's not like Malik Willis mobile, but he's got that type of mobility that like a Joe Burrow has, or somebody that is a pocket passer but has that like a Russell Wilson. He's got that sort of mobility, so that's not a problem. And he's very tough to bring down when he's on the run. You talked about his live arm. He's got a cannon of an arm. Perhaps I won't put him over Carson Strong, but I think he's right there with Malik Willis with the second strongest arm in this entire class. And then I do think he's a pretty accurate thrower of the football. However, he has had some issues with some turnovers before. He has been a little reckless with the ball in that area. I think he's gotten better as his career has gone on. So I like that. I like to see that. But it's not just, to me, look, quarterbacks are they're gonna turn the ball over. They're gonna throw interceptions, especially a guy that kind of plays like Matt Corral did. Matt Corral is not a timing, rhythmic, pinpoint accurate passer like a Joe Burrow is, right? He's a little more of like a Favre-ish type of guy. Like he's going to rip it. He's going to throw it across the yard. And he's going to try
throw
to fit
6 interceptions in a game.
He might have a 6 interception. You know what I mean? He might have that.
He did.
I don't think he did in college. Yeah, but that's more of a fluke. Like I care more about, people look at that. They want to look at his game log from 2020. They see that 6 interception game and they're like, oh my God, that's terrible. But that's really more on the fluky side. What I care about is how many interceptions throughout the season in totality and how many multi-interception games does somebody have. Look, they're going to throw some. You can't be perfect every game. You're going to have a terrible day here and there. So, scratch it off as a one-off in my opinion, because all quarterbacks have that to me. But to me, I just love Matt Corral's all-around game, and I just love everything really about him for the most part. So Matt Corral's been my number 1 guy. That hasn't changed. He's been my number 1 quarterback going back. I mean, from
to last summer. Last year we recorded and you had him number 1, and I thought it was a hot take, and it's still a little bit of a hot take right now. You don't see him number 1 on too many boards. So
and look, Zach, he won't be. That doesn't mean. I just want to clarify for everybody watching. That doesn't mean I think he's going to be the first quarterback taken on the
these
board.
are your rankings.
He won't be. He won't be. But 10 years from now, I think Matt Corral is going to be the best quarterback in this class.
What I'm worried about him is his style of play compared to his size. And I'm not even going to bring up the bowl injury, which he is a gutsy guy. He's almost a little too gutsy. And I call it, he plays Superman ball a little bit, where he weighed in at about 210, 212. I thought that was a little heavier than he played at. And he also didn't have to run. So that it goes back to that. But he was 6'1", 212. I think he plays at about 205. he's not going to be able to get away with that. Even though he did it in the SEC, like you're not going to be able to lower your shoulder and go into a linebacker in the NFL. And he did that constantly. And yes, he was scoring touchdowns, but it was an amazing offensive system based on RPOs. I don't know if that is going to work so much. I'm worried about him making progressions down the field. He has a live enough arm. He has a really actually he might have the best footwork in this class inside the pocket. He gets everything out of his body when he throws the ball. It reminds me of Baker Mayfield a little bit, like a guy that throws the ball a lot harder than you think he should. He's okay with his accuracy. I don't think he didn't have to a lot, but I don't think he reads through his progressions enough. And he plays a Superman ball that really scares me. I see him more as a day two project. But let's go down a little bit because I see you have some comparisons on these, and I didn't even get to my NFL comparisons.
Yeah.
And that's fine and dandy because I have them. I just haven't posted. So you have Ritter as your second. Is that a new? Did you move him up because he has a lot of buzz coming off his combine performance?
Yeah, he was before the combine, he was my third quarterback in the class right after Kenny Pickett. And look, Kenny Pickett, I love Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's right behind him. Like it's like 2A and 2B for those two guys. But yeah, Desmond Ritter's stock is slowly beginning to rise. He has great size for the position. And that's, look, Deshaun Watson. He looks like Deshaun Watson on film. His play style's the same. I don't know if he is as to the level of refinement, I think that Deshaun Watson was coming out a little bit. But I think they're pretty, for the most part, they're pretty equal in that sense. But Desmond Ridder, again, he's got another one of those guys. It's got incredible leadership. He's got that quarterback mentality. He's got the mentality that I really look for in a franchise quarterback. And I'll turn the clock back several years back to 2017, 2018. You guys remember, and you know that I caught, and a lot of people watching remember, I caught so much flack for not liking Baker Mayfield. And my number one thing about him was I don't think he has the franchise quarterback mentality. Mm-hmm. And turns out I was right. And I got hammered about that for 2-3 years in a row. And it just patience and timing. That's all you got to do. And eventually, you know what these quarterbacks are going to be 3-4 years into their career. And Baker Mayfield has showed us exactly what he is. I don't get the sense that Desmond Ridder is anywhere close to that sort of mentality that Baker Mayfield had coming out. I think Desmond Ridder is mature. I think he is ready to step on an NFL field tomorrow and be the face of a franchise as the starting quarterback for an NFL team. The Texans maybe, or even if the Redskins, or excuse me, not the Redskins, the Commanders were to draft a quarterback in the second, day two.
You're like 3 names ago, man.
I know. Where am I at? But if they were like, I think that Carson Wentz would be on a very short leash because I think Desmond Ridder is a very explosive type of player, and he fits that new NFL sort of prototype mold. Like, he's not a running quarterback, but he's a pocket passer. He's a pass first quarterback that has a ton of mobility. And is very good on the run. So I love Desmond Ridder as my QB2 in this draft.
So, Chris, you compare him to Deshaun Watson. That's obviously a really high skill right there. Before we go any further, I wanted to get to this before. What do you grade this class at? I mean, when you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and they can be franchise quarterbacks, to me, this is like a C- quarterback class. And it's only a C- because it does have depth. It has 6 guys I consider in my top 75 that can go in the first 2 days. And if you can go in the first 2 days of the NFL draft, you have a chance to be a starting quarterback. But I don't have anybody inside my top 25 overall players. Of course, one of these quarterbacks is going to go in the top 25. How do you rate this class as a whole? Because when you're telling me Desmond Ridder, franchise quarterback, that gets people excited that he's going to be a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick. And I'm not seeing that type of talent.
No.
With any of these guys, and it's all going to come down to need, and there's a ton of needy quarterbacks. It could be one of those perfect storms of shit, because these teams are going to probably, throw a dart at a quarterback just because you kind of have to. And if you can hit on one of those darts, then it's going to look nice. And if not, you might hit the restart button, maybe even next season, like the Arizona Cardinals did with Josh Rosen.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think Desmond Ritter, and I'll kind of hit on all these guys real quick, but I think Desmond Ritter, as far as franchise quarterbacks, guys that I think are going to come out of this class in 5 years and say, yeah, he is a franchise quarterback. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be any of these guys are going to be turned into Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, because I think those are the two best young quarterbacks in the league. And yeah, people are going to talk about Josh Allen. Give me Joe Burrow over Josh Allen. I don't care what anybody says. But I don't think they're going to turn into guys like that. But I think we're going to look at them and we're going to say, okay, yeah, I think, could Kenny Pickett turn into like a mobile Matt Ryan or something like? Yeah, I think so. I think he could be a very good franchise quarterback for years to come. Could Matt Corral turn into like a Russell Wilson? Yeah, I think he could. Very solid. Could Desmond Ritter turn out to be a Deshaun Watson without the legal issues? Yes, I do think he could be a high-end starting franchise NFL quarterback. Now, I'm not saying these guys are going to win multiple Super Bowls or even one Super Bowl. But if you told me that I could pick how many quarterbacks I think come out of this class that fit that, I think we'd probably be looking at 3. I'd feel good about saying Matt and Desmond and Kenny. But if I had to go to Vegas and put anything on it, I would say Matt and Dez. I would give it to Corral and Ritter. But now, like you said, none of these guys, just because I said none of those guys are going to be drafted in the top 10. Look, we didn't think Daniel Jones was going to go in the top 5. He did. Anything in the draft can happen. But I don't foresee any of these 3-4 guys here, go in the top 5, top 10 as QBs. Malik Willis, I think, is going to be an electrifying player. He is built like Jalen Hurts, and he moves like Lamar Jackson. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Well, wait till I tell you who he throws like. Well, he passes the ball like Jalen Hurts. So that's the problem. That's why he won't be a long-term franchise quarterback. He'll be electrifying for 3 or 4 years, but he will not be a long-term starting NFL quarterback. And then you see the 3 arrows there on the rankings. I mean, after Malik Willis, I think it drops off sharply. I like Carson Strong, his physical tools, but he's a statue. He's an immobile NFL pocket passing quarterback. That's a dying breed. I mean, you got to be damn good to not have any mobility and be a high-end franchise quarterback in this league. Jack Cohn, kind of the same way. And then you get to guys like Sam Howell, who you like a lot more than I do. After Kenny Pickett, I don't think anybody else has a shot, but I'll take Matt and Desmond if I'm going to Vegas to bet on that.
So a couple hot button subjects real quick. And I love that you brought up Malik Willis, because that's going to be one of them. Kenny Pickett's hand size. Very quickly, is this going to be an issue at the NFL? You don't care. It's a little bigger ball.
Don't care. We
struggled at Senior Bowl when the rain came, but I mean, he played in Heinz Field. He's my quarterback 1. He's my quarterback 1, but I'm not that excited about him. He's just the only guy I can consider being a multiple year starter and succeeding and winning football games more than the next guys. Like I said, I am not in love with this class. He just happens to be the first in a pretty damn shitty class. But are you scared of the hand size? And then second question, Malik Willis, for all you guys, I think everybody's watching him with some rose-colored glasses, thinking about fantasy stats instead of wins and losses, and that's going to get you in trouble when you're grading an NFL prospect. So, are the hands an issue, and are people a little too worried about those fantasy stats with Malik Willis and then actually wins and losses?
Okay, Kenny Two Gloves. Yes, I love Kenny Pickett. I won't argue with anybody who has Kenny Pickett as number 1. I won't argue with anybody who has Matt, Desmond, and Kenny as their top 3 in any order. Don't care. I think they're that close. So it just kind of personal preference. I love Kenny Pickett. I think he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. And I don't care about hands. I care nothing about it. We saw the tweet from Joe Burrow last year. He said something along the lines of, I decided to retire after finding out that my tiny hand, the football will be slipping out of my tiny hands. And now he just almost won the Super Bowl. So like, I don't care anything about hand size. I'm not. I understand why people are looking at it.
It was alarming.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, they're alarmingly small. They just are. They're very alarmingly small. Like where it takes notice. Like Joe Burrow it was kind of funny. He had 9 inch. He's a half inch smaller than Joe Burrow, and it's really not ever been recorded for a starting NFL quarterback. So it made me think a little bit, but he goes out of his way. He wears two gloves. He's obviously practicing every day in two gloves, and this guy
Sure.
was, I mean, he played great last year. So it's not going to scare me as much as others, but there's other things about his game that he's not going to have a rocket arm. He is 23, going to be 24 going into this season. He's older. I think we've seen the best of him, but he's also the most pro ready. Now, Malik is the opposite. He he is a 4-year guy who couldn't win the job at Auburn and went to Liberty and ran a really nice Hugh Free system that really played to all the things that he does well, except throw
Against
with
lesser competition.
accuracy. Except throw with accuracy. Because you want to go back to the combine where all the quarterbacks look so amazing. I mean, they're all chiseled up and they throw 60-yard darts when nobody's trying to pressure them, and it looks amazing. He was actually overthrowing some guys. He had more than 4 or 5 bad throws at the combine, and it shows up on film. We talked about Matt Corral, and I really liked his footwork inside the pocket. I hate Malik Willis's footwork inside the pocket. It
Terrible.
looks funky. He's always looking to run. He doesn't go through his progressions. Yes, he wasn't playing with amazing wide receivers or even anybody that's going to be in the NFL, but the ball comes out of his hands. I mean, amazing. Kind of like a Michael Vick, even though he's a lefty. The ball
Yeah.
just comes out of his hands and it looks amazing. I don't think he can throw the ball accurately. I don't think he can read his progressions. He's not Lamar Jackson fast. He's just not. He's 6 foot. I mean, he's not going to see over anything. It's going to be scramble
Yeah.
drills almost every fucking play. Malik Willis, when he is starting in the NFL, when he's a starter, he is a top 10 fantasy quarterback. How long is he going to be a starter? That's my
That,
questions. That's why I'm not excited about Malik Willis.
exactly. Because that's the thing. He does not look, again, he moves like Lamar Jackson, but he plays like Jalen Hurts. And look, Jalen Hurts is a big, strong quarterback, hard to bring down on the run. That's wonderful. So Malik Willis is going to have that going for him. The problem is, again, he throws like Jalen Hurts. I mean, they're identical. Their style of play is identical. So Malik Willis, if you're looking for a fantasy quarterback, draft Malik Willis. By God, draft Malik Willis ahead of Kenny Pickett and maybe even Matt Corral in fantasy. But you're not gonna. This isn't going to be a guy that you're going to have in your fantasy team as a high end fantasy for 10 years. It's not going to happen. He'll be the starter for a few years, probably like Jalen Hurts will probably be. But he's going to be reckless. He's going to make mistakes. He's not going to be a winner in real life. And people have to separate real life from fantasy. A lot of people were doing it last year with like Rondale. Oh, Rondale Moore's going to be amazing. No, he's not. In real life, he's a game changer. He's excellent. I want him on my team. Don't touch him in fantasy because he's going to be way too inconsistent. People have a hard time a lot of times kind of drawing the line between that. So I'm glad you hit on that. I'm totally with you on Malik Willis, and I think it's a dangerous game if people think that he's going to be a high-end NFL starter because they're looking at the combine and they're like, oh, my God, look at that arm. Look at him chunk it downfield. And that's beautiful. That's amazing. But again, it's the underwear Olympics. It's guys practicing in shorts with no pressure. And the receiver they're throwing the ball to way down the combine field has nobody covering him. Like come on, it's almost a joke. So look, he's going to look great on the practice field. He's going to look great. The fantasy box score is going to look great on Malik Willis. But in real life, when we are analyzing real life football, Malik Willis is not going to be it. And I feel pretty strongly about that. So he'll be around for a starter for probably 2-3 years, maybe 4. But then I think into his 5th year, I think we're going to start to see, okay, he's electrifying, but he's not it when it comes to winning NFL meaningful NFL games.
I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page on him. So let's move on a little bit to a guy that we are not. And I don't see him on your list. He actually happens to be my quarterback too. So I'm going to make a case for Sam Howell before I hear your slander on him that he's not even ahead of Jack Cohn, he's my quarterback 10, and I don't think he's even going to be drafted. So Sam Howell, it goes back freshman year. He takes over the starting job week 1, North Carolina. They have a really nice team around him, and he's very successful and goes into the second year. Javonte Williams, Diami Brown. I mean, they were amazing his second year. So let's go to his third year, where he kind of was he was like the senior, he was like the super senior or whatever. Like everybody was new except him, and he kind of had to run around and do a lot of things that he wasn't doing his first 2 years. And what I like about Sam, he is a good leader. He's a gritty guy. He has really nice touch on his balls. It's a quick release. He has a strong arm. He sees the progressions well, and he's a guy that I can really trust that he can make every NFL throw. Now, is he a perfect athlete? No, he's more or less like an average athlete. I compared him to Derek Carr, athleticism, Baker Mayfield, that type of guy. He can move outside the pocket. He's best inside the pocket, but if you need a yard, he can get it for you. And he has some stuff to work on in his footwork. He really does. It's a little clunky, but at the end of the day, this guy was my second quarterback because he is the one that is going to be most likely to start past those 3-4 years that we're talking about with Malik Willis. Him and Matt Corral are similar to me, but I think his game is a little bit more refined. Those RPOs scare me about Corral. I think he's a guy that you can insert as a starter year 1, have him improve, have weapons around him, work on a little bit of the technique, and he can get you he can get you the plays that we're talking about Malik not being able to make, and that's leading your team down the field in a 2-minute situation. Like I trust him doing that. Like he's just a gritty guy that I'm pretty sure I'm going to know the knocks. He's a little bit shorter, and I'd like in my quarterbacks. He's not like an amazing prospect, guys. Don't get me wrong. I think he's the second best quarterback in this class of shit, but have Jack Cohen above him, who is a guy that's probably going undrafted with a weak arm, who is a statue in the pocket. I guess that's my biggest criticism with it. But Sam Howell's a gamer, and I think you're underestimating him. But I want to hear how he's not even in your top 6, Chris, because you're telling me he's like a day 3 prospect in your eyes.
Yeah, I think he is. So let's get into it on Sam Mayfield, or I mean Baker Howell. I mean Sam Howell. He is Baker Mayfield. He looks like Baker Mayfield. He plays like Baker. He is Baker Mayfield. He looks like Baker Mayfield on film. He is Baker Mayfield with his measurable, like everything. It's Baker Mayfield. I think Sam Howell is a guy who is going to be in the NFL a long time. I do. Like Baker Mayfield. And I think that if he is given the opportunity to be the starting franchise quarterback for a team, I think he will have a sort of Baker-esque sort of career arc. I think he is probably best suited as a mediocre, average backup quarterback in this league. We're in 2 different solar systems when it comes to Sam Howell. Sam Howell got worse every single year in college. He got worse every single year. And that's alarming to me. Like, and I tell people all the time, I don't care what anybody did in their freshman year because it's your first year. So typically I say that in relation to somebody not having a great freshman year, kind of like a Jordan Love. I don't care what anybody did in their freshman year because it's their first year starting. But Sam Howell did really good his freshman year, enough to where people were saying, oh yeah, number 1 pick in 2 or 3 years, like number 1 overall pick. It even had me fooled. Then his sophomore year comes, a little bit worse. Still got Javonte Williams, still got Michael Carter, and some talented receivers, and then loses all those guys and completely just craps the bed, just completely falls apart. I am not on Sam Howell at all. I left him off this list because I wanted people to see just how much I dislike Sam Howell. I don't
wanted to shock people. You're going for shock value, huh?
Well, in this part, yes, but it's more so a reflection of my true feelings on Sam Howell. I don't like. Would I take him over Jack Cohn? I don't know. I mean, to me, that's just it's a coin flip between those guys. I'll take Carson Strong over Sam Howell. I'll do that just because Carson Strong has much better physical attributes, physical tools, and I think he has a higher ceiling overall than a guy like Sam Howell. But I don't really like any of these 3 guys as for long-term NFL
So,
viability.
so is it just a personality issue? Because I mean, do you
No, no,
believe he
no.
has a strong enough arm? Is he accurate? Does he see the field enough? Uh,
I, I don't think he sees the field very well. I don't think he has great deep. He doesn't have great deep ball accuracy. We've seen that he overthrows a lot. His decision making is questionable at times. We've seen that decline over the years. And again, I just don't feel like he is. And it's not a Baker Mayfield mentality. I think Sam Howell probably has the mentality that we wanted Baker Mayfield to have. So I don't think it's an attitude, leadership, anything upstairs at all.
he
I think
plays
it's
with a chip on his
purely
shoulder. He
well.
does. He plays
I
with a
will.
chip.
Yes, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But I don't think that. I don't think that his physical gifts and his complete football acumen on the field is going to translate to success as a successful NFL starting quarterback. Do I think he's going to get a chance? Yeah, I think so. He's going to get drafted before Jack Cohn. He'll probably get drafted before Carson Strong. And, I don't think he'll get drafted before any of the other four guys, Matt, Desmond, Kenny, or Malik. But do I think he'll eventually be given a chance and see starter snaps? Probably. But I don't envision anything, tremendous to come out of that.
Him and Corral are they're very close to me. Similar size, similar arm strength, but like I see Sam Howell do it easily. I think if the ball flicks out of his hand a little bit, he makes a 20-yard out throw a lot easier. When I see Matt Corral, he puts everything into him. And if Howell can get behind his feet a little bit, not be so herky jerky inside the pocket, he can wing it. And he is a guy, he can see the field well. This year, I did back off him a little bit. He was my quarterback one coming in, and then I ended up moving Kenny above him. But he sees the field well enough. But he put out some bad tape this year. It made me scared. He's outside my top 25 overall players. I have a late first round grade on him. He's a guy that get into your system, try to work on that footwork, get him some weapons because he is 6 foot, 210 pounds, and runs a 4.8. He's not a guy that he can run a little bit, but he is. I mean, he has a lot to do, like with Baker Mayfield, exact same attributes, same size. He can win you some football games if you get the right team around him. Kind of like when Baker had Nick Chubb and they were rolling with the offensive line and everything was working well. Kareem Hunt, like get him some players. I think he can win you some NFL games. He's not going to go to Detroit and turn that into a 10-win team. That's just not going to happen. Don't get me wrong. He is my second quarterback overall, but it just kind of shows you how weak this draft class is because I'm not that excited. I mean, we're fighting over guys I really don't think that are that great. Well, I mean, it's kind of why I'm kind of being mean. We usually we have a little more back and forth, and we probably are going to get back into the running backs, but the quarterbacks is just kind of okay. Yeah, you're saying a lot of stuff that I like Desmond Ridder. Like I don't think he has the arm talent of a Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's as athletic as he tested. He is a great guy. I don't see him as an NFL starter. I see him as an amazing backup for 8 to 10 years. The guy that can come in and, if your starter gets hurt. That's what I see Desmond Ridder. I do not see him making enough NFL type throws at the collegiate level. And he had a chance against Alabama. They scored like 3 points. So it comes back to him being a gamer compared to does he have enough talent in that arm, which I don't think he does. I'm not seeing it with Ridder, but he's a great guy to draft day 2. Get him in your system. Maybe even have a little package for him because he can move, but he's not as athletic as those testing numbers are. But to compare him to Deshaun, I have to call you out on that a little bit. I don't think they're in the same realm.
Well, yeah, it's not like they're identical players. To me, they're identical on film.
If I would compare him to anybody, it would be Dak. Dak was a 4th round pick. Nobody really thought he had enough arm talent. They used him as almost a quarterback running the Wildcat at times. Dan Mullen used him, and he came in and he showed amazing accuracy, which I don't think Ridder has amazing accuracy, and he had more arm talent than he showed at Mississippi State. So maybe if you wanted to compare him to Dak, I would be a little bit more easier to think of it happening. Deshaun is just such an electric player. I never seen him making Deshaun Watson type plays at Cincinnati, even though they
Oh,
were
I did.
rolling people. I mean, they were rolling people, but it's not
I saw a lot of
necessarily
them.
because of him.
I saw a lot of them. Now, look, I understand comparing him to Dak in that regard, but I'm talking about measurables and on film. That's where my and play style. That's where my NFL comps come in. When you are the same size as somebody, when you have the same play style, and you look like somebody on film, those are the three pillars of my NFL comparisons. To me, that's where the Deshaun stuff comes in. I'm not saying again. I don't think he's quite to the level of season of a passer that Deshaun was when he was coming out. I think he can certainly get there. He's got that ceiling, I believe. But I understand the comparison to Dak in how you were relating to them. But Dak's got what, 20 pounds on him? Like, he's taller than Dak. He's longer than Dak, kind of like what Deshaun Watson is, and the play style is a little bit different. So I can't compare him to Dak in that regard. And yeah, you're right. Going back to these quarterbacks, none of them, the quarterback class doesn't move the needle. The running backs and the wide receivers are what move the needle in this class.
So yeah, let's get to running backs. Let's hit your list up. You got Isaiah Spiller 1, Kenneth Walker 2, James Cook 3, Breece Hall 4. And I have to say, like, we are very similar. Isaiah Spiller is my number 1 back. The size, the contact balance, the lateral quickness. He has it all for his size. He can catch the ball coming out of Texas A&M. I loved him coming into the season. We didn't get the stats that we wanted this year, but the game tape on Isaiah Spiller was really, really good, guys. He's the best back, and I'm not too worried that he didn't run his 40. I'm going back to tape. I'm not worried about this fucking combine of 2022. I'm really sick of it. I really am, because I just don't trust any of it. Number 2 for me is Kenneth Walker. So bada boom, bada bing, we have it right there. We have the first 2 guys. We're agreeing, Chris. I cannot believe it. We're agreeing on running backs. I mean, this goes back to Philip Lindsay versus Royce Freeman. Zach and Chris are agreeing on the first 2 running backs.
Let's keep it going.
Kenneth Walker, I compare him a little bit to a D'Angelo Williams from yesteryear. Size, speed. He has just a knack of finding the hole, and when he hits it, man, his burst is really nice. He weighed in at 210. He ran one of those sub 4.4s, which he's not a sub 4.4 guy. He's just not that on tape, but he's a really nice guy. I had him at about a 4.48. I thought he was coming in. So he's a sub 4.5 guy at 210 pounds for a running back. That is very good. I think he's a guy that can jump in and be a very productive running back. I see him as a second round guy. I don't really see any of these running backs going in the first round, but I do have to check you a little bit right here on the Breece Hall behind James Cook. Now, I do like James Cook, and I actually just moved him up my rankings a little bit above Kyren Williams, who just shit the bed at the combine. But, you know, I know you're not a Georgia fan, Chris, but this goes back to Elijah Holyfield. You seem to always be on a Georgia player. Describe to me why James Cook is higher on your board than a Breece Hall for your NFL rankings. And again, this is not for fantasy. This is NFL draft rankings. Who is the better prospect? James Cook, Breece Hall. Let me know what you're thinking right here.
Yeah, it kind of like when it goes back to Desmond and Kenny Pickett being 2A and 2B. This is the exact same thing except for running backs. I mean, this is 3A, 3B for me. Put them, they're interchangeable. Put them in whatever order you want. I don't care. I think James Cook can be. I think he's fun. I think both guys are great. I think I would be more apt to take James Cook just because I know going into this draft, he's the best pass-catching running back in this class. He's got a niche. Teams are going to be salivating to have him, to have a guy like with his talent and with his ability in their backfield. And look, I think on tape he does remind me a lot of Dalvin. Now, Dalvin's got 15 to 20 pounds on him, if not more. So James Cook could kind of be that do-it-all workhorse running back. You can kind of gain a little bit more weight. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to be settled in. I think he's going to be fine on the ground as well, and he's talented on the ground, not to the Dalvin Cook, to his brother's level. But I do think from a receiving standpoint, he's probably better than Dalvin, and I think he's going to probably prove it in the NFL. I think he's the best receiving back in the league. I think he's going to be around a long time. He's going to find that niche, and he's going to be a great complementary back in real life for years to come. In fantasy, he's going to be great in PPR. So get ready for James Cook in that aspect. I love his film, and I don't know what it is about. I'm a Georgia Tech fan, but again, I don't let my bias. I'm the most fair person you're going to find when it comes to actually studying players and
I think
doing
you're a
rankings.
closet Georgia fan. I'm gonna say it. You're a closet Georgia fan.
No. That's
You're
yeah,
closet.
no.
Come out the
No.
closet.
No, I'm about as closet of a Georgia fan as you're a closet as a Florida State fan. So, yeah, so it's definitely not a UGA fan, but you got to respect the talent that they bring out, and I've always done that. And look, it's RBU for the most part. Like in a way, they are right there with like with Alabama. They're just churning in these NFL guys. Now, not as many have been successful as the guys coming out of Alabama in the NFL, but as far as pure talent, they're right there with them. But I love James Cook, and again, I love Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall plays, when I watch him play, he plays kind of like an Arian Foster. Now, he ran faster than what Arian Foster ran in the 40. But again, you and I just agreed before the show and, just a second ago, we don't believe that Breece Hall is 4.3 fast. There is workout speed, and I think there's on-field speed. On-field speed, Breece Hall is not that fast. He's fast enough. Who cares if he's not running a 4.3? If he's actually 4.5, 4.55 to 4.45 on field, that's plenty fast enough for a running back. I don't care if he runs a 4.6. Breece Hall is talented enough all the way around to be an impact feature back in the NFL for years to come.
I like
and
it.
I'm plenty satisfied with taking him in the second round and later. But I love both guys. They're 3A and 3B for me.
I like a lot what you said. I really agree with it. I moved James Cook up to my RB6, so I can't have like, oh, James Cook sucks. I actually really like James Cook. He didn't get many touches at Georgia. I liked him last year. He could have went to the draft last year, maybe been a late round pick. I think he's going to be a better pro than a college player because he just really didn't get a chance to, tote the ball enough at Georgia. But when he did, he was explosive. And it was usually in that pass game.
Real quick, Zach, I like what you just said. A better pro than college player. I actually think that's true for Isaiah Spiller, our number one running back. I do, because a lot of people are going to look at this. A lot of people are going to make this argument. So get ready for it. And this is how you combat that stupid argument where people are like, well, he didn't blow up every single week, and he wasn't great every single week, and he's obviously not that good because he had to split the backfield with Devin Achane. Let me tell you something. Devin Achane is a world-class speedster. Devin Achane is a really good player. Devin Achane is going to be one of the best running backs in the country this coming year in college football, and he's going to get drafted very high. But here's the thing. Just because a running back shares the backfield with another talented running back doesn't mean that the other running back is any less talented. Isaiah Spiller's the best running back in the country. Maybe Bijan Robinson, but he's not draft eligible. Draft eligible running backs, Isaiah Spiller to me is far and ahead of all these other running backs in this class. And I'm not going to let a stat line by Devin Achane and the fact that he split the backfield. Jimbo Fisher knew that he had two talented running backs in that backfield. What does any smart coach do? Uses both talents. Okay,
Chris, I'm not used to agreeing with you. What the fuck is going on? What is going on?
But what did
Achane is amazing, dude.
Here's another example of that argument, though. Last year, even my own podcast partner, Mark, God love him, was talking about, well, is Javonte Williams actually that good? Because look what Michael Carter did in the same backfield. And I'm like, Mark, look, I think Javonte Williams, I think they're both great. I think Javonte's better. Okay, I can talk about Javonte Williams all day. But it doesn't, Mac Brown at North Carolina, he knew what he had in his backfield. And he's like, well, why am I just going to run Javonte Williams in the ground when Michael Carter is just nearly as good and can do everything that Javonte can? Let me rotate these guys and keep them fresh. That's what any smart coach does. So for everybody listening, don't let anybody tell you that just because Isaiah Spiller doesn't have some world-class stat line and didn't take 90% of the target share and the carry share in the Texas A&M backfield, don't let that fool you into thinking that he's not good or that he's not as good as advertised. He is better than advertised.
And like we're agreeing. I'm 100% with you right here. Isaiah Spiller, Achane, we can get in the 2023 RBs all day. And A-Chain is one of my favorite backs next year. He has world-class speed, and there's a
Yeah.
reason why he was getting on the field with Isaiah Spiller. But we did not get that humongous, running back like 1,600 yard season from an Isaiah Spiller. And it left some people maybe a little bit more thirsty that maybe he's not that type of guy. I'm not worried about it. If anything, he is more fresh coming into the NFL. Give me him over Brees, even if you have him 1A, 1B. Uh, it, give me Isaiah because he has about 300 less touches. I mean, he
That's
just
another
does.
thing. Yeah.
So I mean, he has basically one less season than Brees Hall. Brees Hall was worked to death for 3 years, and I got some flack on Brees, and I really haven't come off it because I didn't trust a lot of the stats. But his vertical, I mean, the man did jump 40 inches. That's amazing for his size. So maybe some of the speed, he is faster. He tested better than I thought. I called him a little bit of a jag preseason, and he had a nice season, and it really didn't change. He's not showing me anything that's amazing. He's running against Big 12 defenses. He's an average athlete. He has nice vision. He's hard to bring down. He has bare hands. Like, he catches the ball really well, but is he going to go out of the backfield and make a linebacker miss to create open space? No, he's a check down guy, kind of like A.J. Dillon was. So I'm thinking he's going to be system dependent if we're talking fantasy. If he ends up on a bad team, I don't know, I'm just saying they don't need a running back. Detroit Lions, whatever, Texans. I don't think he's going to be amazing in fantasy, guys. He's just not. He's not a world beater like a Saquon Barkley was pre-injury, or Christian McCaffrey or anybody like that. You put him on a great system, of course, he could be the Leonard Fournette of Tampa Bay. That's kind of where I see him athletically and how he's going to be able to produce. He's going to produce as the offense produces. I just don't see him as a game changer. I think Isaiah is a little bit more of a game changer. Let's go on your list. You have a guy, I really like Pierre Strong. Jerome Ford's in my top 10. And then the next four guys are not in my top 10. So I'm going to have to grill you about some of the guys that aren't in your top 10. And then we're going to talk about a sleeper that we both like. I'm going to bring up Rachaad White. When you talk about the best receiving back in this class, James Cook is definitely in my top 3. The best receiving back to me is Rachaad White, because he is a guy that can get out on the outside and make a move on a linebacker and create separation, get the ball and move it down the field. He has good size. He's 6'1", 210 pounds, a guy that is also hasn't had a ton of workload. So him and James Cook are very similar in my rankings. They're actually 4 and 6 individually, but they're guys that are going to be better pros. Maybe not in the fantasy stats with 200 plus carries or anything like that, but they're guys that you want on your team. You want James Cook, you want Rachaad White on your team, and he's a guy I feel I think you're a little bit crazy for not having him in your top 10 when you have him behind a guy like Tyler Goodson, Ty Chandler, Brian Robinson. They're guys that I have ranked. Hassan Haskins is outside my 20s. So I'm going to give you some grief right here, and I'm going to check you on your Rachaad White. How do you not have this guy in your top 10?
Look, it's not that I don't like Rachaad White. I do. I just don't like him more than long term than any of these guys. And I'm going to be completely transparent here. First of all, I like Rachaad White's size, and I do like his game. I think he can be any of these guys. Literally any of these running backs in this class can find themselves. We know running backs a revolving door, and in real life, what's the saying? And I'm the chairman of the committee. Running backs don't matter, right? Like, you can find them anywhere. You shouldn't be paying them big contracts. I don't care if they're Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey. You should not be paying the big contracts. I do like Rachaad White, but I only wanted to rank 10 of these guys, and I don't really think that that he is that much better than any of the guys I have ahead of him. I think they're all coin flips, to be quite honest with you. After, I think, Pierre Strong, or maybe even Ty Chandler, I think these are all coin flips, and that's just kind of where I am with guys like this. So look, if anybody wants to put Rachaad White, over Tyler Goodson or Brian Robinson or Hassan Haskins, I'm not going to argue with you, and I can't argue with you there. But I think I told you the other day, to me, after Jerome Ford at 5, maybe Pierre Strong at 6, who I'm starting to like a little bit more, I think it drops off. I just don't.
Bang.
I don't think any of these guys are really going to be. I don't think there's any franchise do it all workhorse running backs in real life now. After probably Jerome Ford, to be quite honest with you, in fantasy, any of these guys could, turn into like a James Robinson and be pretty valuable for a couple years. But to me, I just don't see it with really anybody out after Jerome Ford, to be quite honest with you.
And Jerome Ford is a guy that's the opposite of Rachaad White, James Cook. He's a strictly a downhill runner that didn't show much in the pass game, minus some screen plays. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to jump on the Rachaad White bandwagon right here. I'm going to show you these 3 plays that we just watched. So, and it's him doing some of the things that we just talked about, getting out of the backfield and making a linebacker miss and getting open right here. Bang. That route he's going to be able to run in the NFL for 8 seasons, 10 seasons. He's a guy that can catch the ball, and he's the most shifty running back in this class. I became kind of a big fan. Like, he was my RB5, and Kyron shit the bed, and I moved him up RB4, and I had to move Kyron down a little bit because his athletic profile is not what you're going to want to see in the NFL. But check this. I mean, look at it, Chris. That's not a top 10 running back. Look at him coming out of the backfield. He's doing all the things that we were just talking about, that he just getting easy yards because he is a mismatch out of the backfield. Plus, he can tote the rock, downhill. This guy averaged 9 yards per carry in 2020, in the short seasons of 2020 because of fucking COVID. Oh, and I just lost it. So he's a guy that he's not going to be a 20 carry guy, but he can be a 12 to 15 touch guy that can be a difference maker for what he can do on the third downs. I just think it's a little foolish that you don't have him inside your top 10 compared to a guy like Tyler Goodson and Hassan Haskins, where I'm just kind of like blah. I'm not seeing it on tape. I'm not seeing the multiple usage that James can do and that Rachaad can do. So it's just a little bit like, I know you didn't rank your top 25, and I have my top 25 ranked and everything like that. Like I said, I have Haskins outside the 20. Like that's special. We just watched 7-8 plays from 2 games where he can do those exact things on the NFL field. I don't know if Jerome Ford is going to be running through holes like he was against UCF. I mean, it's not going to be like that in the NFL. So
well, he's more like a J.K. Dobbins. Like J.K. Dobbins isn't doing in Baltimore what he was doing at Ohio State. Like that I agree with.
I think they're different players, Chris. I'm not going to lie. They have the same size. They have the same build.
Same play style.
J.K. is a very shifty guy, where Jerome Ford is a downhill runner. I'm not seeing the comp. You're going to have to sell me on that one.
Well, I don't think J.K. Dobbins is a super shifty guy. He's a power downhill runner himself. I mean, you could just look at the tape he's put on Baltimore. You don't even have to go back to Ohio State. But even if you do, I think they're identical in play style. So that's really where that comp comes. And of course, to add to that is the measurables. But again, once you get past Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong, for me, it becomes so muddied at running back. And I think a big reason for that, Zach, is because you just never know what's going to happen at running back. It's so people get hurt, and I've said for years now, it is the most easily replaceable position in the entire league, and you can replace it for so cheap. Some of these guys are going to be drafted in the 7th round, maybe even go undrafted. And they're going to be Rachaad White could be the next Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt or Chris Carson or James Robinson. Like, we go on and on. He could very well be that. Philip Lindsay, we don't know. But even if he does, if you're right, and I do think you could be right with him being a guy who I don't think he'll be a feature back, and I think we agree there. But if he does make a huge impact in the league, it will be as sort of a change of pace, third down back, what he can bring into that receiving game. And there's guys like that. They have a long shelf life in the NFL, like guys like James White, right? So, and I think James Cook, we talked about him earlier. I think he's another one, another great one. I think for guys like James Cook and Rachaad White, and Ty Chandler, even a great spot for them would be a place like Tennessee. You're not going to be the featured back. You're not going to be expected to, and the team you're going to be running behind a good offensive line on a good team with a great offense that's going to keep the talent in the passing game is going to keep the defense honest when it comes to defending the run. And not only that, but they have been looking for several years. They've been looking for a change of pace running back to Derrick Henry. They thought it was going to be Darrington Evans, who just got released today. So that tells you right there, they are looking for someone with the skill set of a James Cook or a Rashawn White or a Ty Chandler to kind of be that valuable change of pace for Derrick Henry as Derrick Henry gets older, just came off a big injury. So we'll see what happens there. But look, guys like that are going to make a living in the NFL. So even though he's not in my top 10, I mean, to me, it's just like you flip a coin. They're all kind of scrunched up there together after Jerome Ford, in my opinion.
Okay, I get it. I might give you a pass, but I'm thinking Chris McConnell's going to dig in on Rachaad White a little bit, and I think you're going to come out this side. You're going to come out this side green.
Well,
because I think you're going to catch on to a little bit that this size and the skill set and the ability to make people miss, we know that is an ability that transcends into the NFL. Running fast doesn't always. Jerome Ford, he outran a lot of people in college. I don't think he's going to outrun a lot of people in the NFL. What you can do is get a linebacker in a one-on-one situation, and Rachaad White can win that because he is the most twitchy running back in this class at 210 pounds and 6'1". He has the size that the NFL wants. He has the skill set that the NFL wants, and he does not have much tread off those tires. This guy is fresh, ready to go, and be inserted to maybe an Alvin Kamara role. I'm not calling him AK, but into that role with maybe a power back. I like the Derrick Henry, the Tennessee Titans. That could happen like Mark Ingram was in the New Orleans Saints, and then let this guy the future is bright for Rachaad White. I think his best football is ahead of him. Also, let's talk about a guy that we're both kind of on, and it's a Division II guy, Pierre Strong, who came out, and I'm not going to lie, I had to go find the tape, and this is just the highlights. I'm not going to pretend like I watched every single game or whatever like this, so I'm catching the highlights, and it's a guy that is 210 pounds. He looks like he runs a 4.4, even though he tested at 4.37, and, now we're playing competition. The competition is sub, but I think he's a guy that is shooting up draft boards. He wasn't even on my radar. Now he is on my radar, and then he's moving up, and I think he has a chance to possibly even be a day 2 guy, maybe go in the 3rd round. What do we think about Pierre Strong? What do we like about him, Chris, going forward?
I like Pierre Strong. I don't think he's going to go on day 2. I think he could go on late in day 3, and he could even go undrafted. It wouldn't surprise me if he went undrafted.
I don't know, Chris.
I hope he doesn't.
But there's a lot of buzz on him.
And there is, and rightfully so. But if he does go undrafted, it wouldn't surprise me. However, if anybody wants to ask, I get asked this every year ever since it happened. If anybody wants to ask who's the next Philip Lindsay, I do think it is Pierre Strong. I do, and I think
you had to do it. You had to do it, right?
I had to. I do like him, and what jumped off. His speed was great. I do want to see more missed tackles by him. I want to see a little bit him be a little more strong of a runner. But I think in space, he's very, very dangerous, very shifty, and he can make people miss in space. Obviously, he's got that speed to burn. But what I really, really like about him, and I always say about running backs, I've said it in my scouting briefs before, and I tell people this all the time. The 2 things as a running back that will rip you off the field quicker than anything is turning the ball over, fumbles, and not being able to protect the franchise cornerstone, the quarterback. So if you're not good in blitz pickup and you're not good in pass pro, 2 different things, you could get ripped off the field very quick. And Pierre Strong is good in both of those. He excels in both of those. And that's what really popped off the film when I was watching his tape. That's exactly what happened when I was watching Philip Lindsay. I will never forget it. The first thing, other than the speed, that popped off the film to me with Philip Lindsay was his breakaway speed and his pass protection blitz pickup. It was phenomenal. And that was the very first thing I think that I mentioned when we talked about Philip Lindsay all those years ago. And it's the same thing with Pierre Strong. And I think Pierre Strong could really be one of these guys that you want to take in the 3rd, 4th round of your rookie draft. And look, these are pre-draft. I want to make sure people understand. For me, these are pre-draft rankings. These are definitely going to change a lot when we find out where these guys are going to go. So Pierre Strong ends up in like Atlanta okay, and we don't draft anybody else, I mean, he's going to be one of the top running backs that you should take in fantasy, I believe. But as of right now, I do have him in my top 6. He is number 6, right behind Jerome Ford. Who, by the way, I want to mention one more thing about Jerome Ford. You don't like Jerome Ford very much,
I
but
I do like Jerome Ford. He's my RB 7 or 8.
okay,
He went down a touch. I thought he was going to be a low 4.4 guy, and with this, I mean, wacky combine, he was a 4.6 guy, and it made me worried a little bit because he weighed a little bit less than he was anticipated to. He was like, I think 209. People thought he might be 215, maybe even 220. What I noticed about him is I don't see the lateral quickness. I see straight line speed. I see him hitting the hole, and he hits it hard. He has plenty of burst. He has all the burst that you want in a running back. I don't know if he sees the cutback lanes like a Rashad White or a James Cook or even an Isaiah Spiller. I don't know. He doesn't have the pass protection film that you're talking about with Philip Lindsay, and I haven't seen him get out on a linebacker and create separation and catch a 10-yard out. I've seen him make some screen plays where he makes one guy miss possibly or just hits a lane, and you see that burst. You see that downfield speed that looked a lot better than 4.6. But what I'm worried about Jerome Ford, what is he going to do when it's not there? I don't think. I think he's just going to be just a guy. If it's not there, he's not going to get it. Where I see some of these more twitchier, lateral quick backs that can make a little something out of nothing, and a little chicken salad out of chicken shit. I don't see him making too much chicken salad.
Well, he's going to make plenty of chicken salad, and what he's going to do, you asked what he's going to do when it's not there. He's going to force missed tackles. You want to know why? He was number 1 in the country at the position in force missed tackles, 52 of them this past year. So Jerome Ford, while he may not have the lateral quickness that we would like out of like a James Cook, that's not what J.K. Dobbins has either. So these are when you don't have that lateral quickness and you are more of a straight line speedster, I'm fine with it if it means you're going to break a lot of force missed tackles. And what is the guy last year that we loved one reason we loved him because of his force missed tackles was Javonte Williams. Now, I'm not comparing him to Javonte Williams. What I'm saying there is that it's always good to see force missed tackles out of running backs. We saw it out of David Montgomery. We saw it out of Javonte Williams, and it has translated for both of those guys at the next level. That is something that translates to the next level. I think that's gonna really help Jerome Ford moving forward. So I just wanted to hit on that for anybody that's kind of sour on Jerome Ford.
We're about to move the wide receivers, but
I can't wait.
And you only, I wish you had a little deeper rankings, Chris. I feel like I need to see it. I really do. I need to see where you put these guys. I love this shit. But is there anybody in your top 10 or outside your top 10, excuse me, that you're excited about that just didn't make the cut? Because there's a lot of guys. Like I said, I have 4 guys in my top 10 that aren't even in yours. So I want to hear a couple guys that are maybe on the borderline of being a top 10 guy or that could possibly pass, sorry ass Hassan Haskins.
And I'm not huge on Hassan Haskins, but again, I'm not huge on any of these guys outside of the top 5.
There's a couple guys you're missing on. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna say it. So,
let me say
Kevin Harris is my RB6. He's a 228-pound, bulldozer who led the SEC in rushing in 2020 with one of the worst quarterbacks in passing games in the country. He's a guy that's going to be a 2-down back. He's not a 3-down back by any means, but if you watch the North Carolina bowl game, these guys did not want to hit him. He is a special power back that you can get him in the right system. He could have 200 plus carries and score a ton of touchdowns. Tyler Batty, he's what Kyron Williams was supposed to be at the combine, and I'm going back on tape on him, and I'm just falling in love all over with him. He doesn't have the great size, but either does Austin Eckler, man, and he runs tough. You get every bit of his 194 pounds when he runs the ball, much like Philip Lindsay coming out of Colorado. You got every bit of his weight. Who's another guy that didn't make your top 10 that you're kind of high on that could jump into your top 10 and be a sleeper?
Well, if I had to choose one, and I know that that I know a certain NC State fan that's going to be really happy about this. So hat tip to Josh. Zonovan Knight, I think, is a guy.
Bam Knight, I love it.
Yeah, I think
Number.
Zonovan Knight has a chance to be something special in the NFL if I'm trying to target a guy outside my current top 10. He had more than 6,000 all-purpose yards and 80 touchdowns in high school. So I mean, he was already churning out the numbers when he came to NC State, and he was very talented and a big reason why NC State was such a competitive team this past season. So I think Zonovan Knight, if I had to pinpoint one, I'd say him. But again,
Love it.
he's not a guy that I'm like in love with. But if I had to choose, I guess he'd be the guy.
See, Chris, I wish, I think you should be even higher on him. He kind of goes along that Isaiah Spiller timeline of why didn't he ever get more production? Because he's sharing the backfield with a 5-star running back and Ricky Pearson, who was a really good running back that put up a lot of good stats, and he was multidimensional. He has good size, good burst. He can catch the ball. He's a kick returner. He was a fantastic kick returner. I mean, he had like 100-yarder against Miami in 2020 that broke my heart, and I was like, wow, who's this guy? And I caught on the tape. I was hoping he was going to have a little bit more hype coming out of the combine, and it was kind of the opposite. He ran in the low 4.6s. His agility drills were okay, but this is a guy that's 210 pounds, nice size, nice bulk, not much wear on those tires. You see a trend, guys. The running backs I like can do multiple different things, and they didn't get the shit kicked out of them for 3-4 years at the college level, and they're going to come into the NFL fresh. And guess what? These NFL teams look at that too. They don't necessarily want a finished product when they draft a player. They want someone that they can project forward as improving.
That's true.
And in the second, third year, then you see the final product, and that's what you put on the field in the NFL. Breece Hall is a final product, and that's fine. He's going to be probably the first running back taken. He had a fantastic combine. I think you've seen the best of Breece Hall, and it's really good.
I agree.
It is really good. Don't get me wrong, but you put him on a shitty Texans offense, and he's going to average 3.4 yards per carry, and he's not going to be Najee catching 10, 12 passes a game. He's just not that type of cat.
Yeah, I think the thing with Zonovan Knight that worries me real quick, really the only thing with him that worries me would be fumbles. He had 7 career fumbles. Yeah. And look, it wasn't like, they were kind of spread out a little bit, so it's not like a massive issue. But I'd say, that's something that he definitely would need to work on would be ball security. Because, again, that's one of the two things that'll rip you off the field for a running back quicker than anything. But, yeah, I mean, I think he would be the guy that I would probably choose if I had to take somebody off.
I mean, and it's muddied. I mean, there's guys we're not going to be able to talk to right now. Ja'Shawn Corbin from Florida State. Keontae Ingram. These are guys I really like. If they could get a chance, they have decent size and really nice speed. They can catch the ball. If they get in the right situation, get an opportunity, they could produce crazy fantasy stats.
This is why running backs don't matter in real life, Zach, because there's so many of them. Like,
I'm not going to back you too much on that. There's a guy, Damian Pierce, out of Florida.
Yeah, another
Twitter loves this guy. They fucking love this guy, and I'm not so much on him. He's a 2-down back who can pass block. He's a great pass blocker. He can't run pass routes, so why have him on third down if he can't? He's Samaje Perine. Yeah. That's what I'm going to compare him to. So he can't catch passes, but you have him in on third down instead of Joe Mixon because he can block. That there's a ton of guys. Now I might take it back a little bit. Maybe you aren't as big a Georgia closet fan for not having Zamir White in your top 10. Quickly, we're going to end the running backs with Zamir White. What's your prospects on him going into the NFL?
I mean, I think he ran a good 40, and that's cool. But that he goes back to one of those same type of guys. Like, what happened with the 40s? Just like Breece Hall, like he's not 4.3 fast on film on the field. Like when his path, he is not 4.3. Zeus is not 4.3 fast. I don't care what. I think Georgia fans would agree with. He is not 4.3 fast. So it was kind of surprising to see that time out of him. And I don't even think he's low 4.4 fast. I mean, I think he's a bigger, stronger running back. I think he can be an early down goal line sort of guy. I think he's sort of And I think that's kind of what Hassan Haskins will be, maybe like a Master Teague will be. I don't think they're going to they're not going to blow anybody away with their talent. They're not going to be a do-it-all force out of a backfield. They're not going to be a feature franchise running back. Zeus could find, some like LeGarrette Blunt type of career, but I don't think he's ever going to be a top of the heap running back in the league. Of course, again, any running back can find a couple years of being a great player. But I don't even think, he's going to have like a James Robinson type of impact in the NFL. So I'm not really a big Zeus guy, to be quite honest.
He ran a lot better than I thought.
Yeah.
He ran a lot better than I thought. He weighed a little less than I thought. I think he came in a little lighter than he played at, or what he should play at for his game style. He's a straight up and down running back who's very powerful, has nice feet. He's not gonna make anybody miss in the hole, but he doesn't have bad feet. He's gonna find the hole. He has good vision. I really wish he didn't have those ACL injuries, because I don't know if he could be more explosive than he showed on film. This is a guy that had 2 different ACL injuries, one in high school, one his freshman season.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if we ever are going to be able to see the best of what possibly could be. But he is going to find a role in the league. He's going to be drafted, maybe 3rd round, maybe 4th round. He's going to get into a committee, and you never know. You get in those committees, and you never know what can happen. He can get the hot hand, or he could just completely fall off the face of the earth. That's what I think about Zamir White. I have him at RB10, moved him up from 11. He's in the Keontae Ingram kind of tier that, is going to be spot dependent, probably early day 3 running backs who are going to have a specific need in the NFL. Like, he's never going to be on 3rd downs. I mean, this is a guy that gives you 0 production out of the backfield. Now, that doesn't mean maybe he can catch the ball a little bit, but they just didn't even try to throw to him. They didn't even put him in when it was time to throw the ball. So Straight up and down, you give him a big hole. He can make some yards. He can score some touchdowns, but he doesn't excite me. A lot of people are really excited about the size speed combo because of what he ran in the 40. So, it goes back to this combine. Zonovan Knight plays a lot faster than Zamir White, or Zonovan Knight. Sorry, Zonovan Knight plays a lot faster than Zamir White, but he ran a 40 that was much faster than him, and it just kind of adds up to you have to go back to the tape. I want to see running backs be multidimensional, and it's not Zamir White's game at all.
No.
So maybe you aren't. Maybe you're not as big a Georgia closet fan as I was saying. So let's hit up the wide receivers real quick, man. This is getting good and deep, and let's see what your wide receivers look like. And we have the wide receiver 1, the same exact wide receiver 1. Let's hit it up, Chris. The combine. Treylon Burks is a guy that does not win with amazing route running. He's not a very precise route runner. He wins on raw ability and being bigger and faster than everybody. So I thought he was going to test out of this world. I thought he was going to have the DK combine where he rips his shirt off and people go crazy, and he runs a 4.4 and jumps out of this world. And it just did not happen. He had a vertical jump of 33 inches. Now, he did improve that. They already had their pro day, but he stuck with his 4.55 40. Some of the other drills, he looked good in the throwing drills and the catching drills. He really actually looked very well, a little better than I thought. He didn't test as well. Did that scare you at all? Did you downgrade him a little bit? I had him at a 4.45. I thought he was a mid-4 guy. He ran 4.5s, and it looked clunky. I thought maybe at 6'2", 225, I thought maybe he could probably run a little better about 218.
Yeah, no, that's not going to scare me at all. That's kind of what his combine is, pretty much what I expected. I didn't think he was going to, blow the roof off the building like DK did. Look, you can see it right there. His NFL comp for me is AJ Brown, and I think not far behind that would be like a Deebo Samuel. I think that's kind of, and Deebo's not a precise route runner either. Deebo wins on pure ability and his size. He's very hard to bring down. Same with Treylon Burks. But I think Treylon Burks is closely more closely comparable to AJ Brown because of his pure ball skills and his run after the catch and things of that nature. So I think that's the type of mold of a player that Treylon Burks is going to be. I think he's going to be an alpha wide receiver one. I'm not saying he's going to be, to the level of AJ Brown. Do I think he can? Yeah, I absolutely think he can. And it wouldn't surprise me if he is. And I think he's going to be very close to that level. So, look, I've said from the get-go, with the whole stuff with Calvin Ridley going on with my Falcons, if we leave, if we're, for some reason, we trade up for a second pick in the first round, and we take Treylon Burks, you're not going to hear me crying because we need somebody across from Kyle Pitts to do the dirty work. And I would be thrilled if that guy is Treylon Burks. So he's my number one guy, followed closely by Jameson Williams. I think Jameson, we talk about route running. Jameson Williams, a very precise, very seasoned route runner as well. And then, of course, another one in that sort of mold is Chris Olave. This is another one of those 2A, 2B type of guys. If you want to I may even move Olave up ahead of Jameson Williams coming up. I have Chris Olave, to me, plays a lot like Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's even faster to me than Odell Beckham is. I think he's even a better route runner than Odell Beckham was coming out. As a matter of fact, if I had to choose one guy and go to Vegas and put my money down on one of these receivers in this entire class for in 5-10 years to be the best out of this class, I would probably say that it would be Chris Olave. But I think Treylon Burks right now, I think he's my number one guy, but they're all pretty close to me in these first three.
It is a loaded class. It really is. And it got a little muddied because of injuries. George Pickens coming off an ACL injury. Jameson Williams tears his ACL.
Yeah.
John Mechie tears his ACL. Like, what the hell? Drake London breaks his ankle. It's getting a little crazy here with injuries, but we're watching some Treylon Burke right now, and we're watching it live, and we see the stuff you're talking about. Deebo Samuel kind of bigger. I would rather have him redefine himself on the outside instead of throwing him in the backfield and a reverse here and there.
Yeah.
Screen passes, that's fine. Get him the ball. It doesn't mean put him in the backfield. There's only one Deebo, man. And there's only one, you know what? It goes back. There's only one Kyle Shanahan. He's the one calling the plays. He's the one drawing those plays up in the sand and making those work. So not just anybody can call a play like that. Not anybody can just do that. But we're seeing the ball skills and the ability to go get the ball. He's a very raw route runner, and I want to see him redefine it a little bit, and I think he will at the NFL level. His second year at Arkansas, he blew up, and that's where he kind of came on my radar, but they were using him everywhere because they just they had a lack of talent around him, and they used him more like a Deebo Samuel. His junior season, man, he was on the outside most of the time, and he was making SEC defenders look bad, like he just made Derek Stingley look bad right there, number 24 on LSU. So give me Treylon Burke as my wide receiver one, but you are way down on my wide receiver two, Chris. What is up with the Garrett Wilson hate?
Look, I like Garrett Wilson, but I think he is more of the type of mold of like a Marquise Brown, which is obviously you can tell that's who I have him comp to. He's that sort of archetype of a receiver, and I think he can be very good. He is obviously very fast, just as fast as Olave. He's almost as good of a route runner as Olave, but I don't think as a complete receiver he's as good as Chris Olave. But look, he's going to be good in the NFL. He's going to have a place. I don't think he is not
Chris,
an alpha.
Dontario Drummond.
We're going to go down the line. You just be patient there, Xander. You just be patient there,
man.
Xander.
Dontario Drummond.
Oh yeah, baby.
I could see maybe.
Oh yeah.
Behind Olave, Jameson Williams has this 5-star speed. Yeah. Drake London is the prototypical outside receiver that can go get it. Garrett Wilson is a guy that I thought was bigger, but man, did you call Olave the best route runner? Because it probably is. It's probably Olave can put people on ice. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I think Garrett Wilson's is right there with a little bit, even though he just creates separation down the field a lot like it's funny that you have T. Higgins on this list with Drake London. Like T. Higgins, like it seems like he like 20 yards down the field creates more separation than he does at the line of scrimmage, and sometimes it doesn't look like he's open till he's all the way down the field. Garrett Wilson gets open deep, and he gets open deep big. I know all the Ohio State wide receivers did. Olave is a great route runner. I'm not going to hate you on that, but when we're talking about Drummond and Romeo Dubs above Garrett. I don't know, Chris. I mean, Garrett Wilson is as solid as they can be unless you want a 6'2" guy. He's smaller than I thought. I actually compare him to more like an Odell Beckham. I think he is a guy that isn't 6'4", but he goes up and he gets the ball in situations where it's a contested catch situation. He has good hands. I'm just not seeing Alec Pierce. Some of these guys, I don't know. I think it's just a little bit of slander, man. I think it's disrespectful.
Well, it's kind of like the running backs. Like if you want to put them ahead of Dontario and Alec Pierce and even John Mechie, like I'm not going to argue. Even Justin, like those, when it gets past Drake London to me, it drops off a little bit. So again, those guys, for me, from 7 to 12. Are pretty interchangeable.
All right.
But I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a place in this league, but I think it's going to be more of that Marquise Brown archetype of receiver. He's going to be a solid beta receiver in this league. He's not going to be an alpha. He's not a number one guy like his counterpart Olave is. But that's fine. You don't have to be successful, just like Marquise Brown has shown us. But I don't think he is going to turn into one of these guys that is just going to take over a football game. Like, is he going to catch a 70-yard bomb? And is it going to look pretty while we're watching NFL Red Zone? Absolutely. And he's going to put up some big fantasy days because of that. But I just don't see him being a high volume type of game wrecking receiver from first quarter all the way through the fourth quarter. I think there's going to be some big pops. But I think Marquise Brown is pretty much what he's going to be in the NFL. And it's not an insult. It's just the type of archetype receiver that I think he's going to be.
Yeah, Marquise is just more of a straight speed guy. He showed a little bit more.
I think that's what Garrett Wilson is. Marquise Brown is a phenomenal route runner, and he creates separation in his route running. But he is more of a straight line.
He's skinny as hell. Like Marquise Brown came in at like 155.
Like I don't know about that.
He's gained weight. I mean, he is a lot thicker than he was. I think Wilson's a different guy. He's above the rim type player, even though he doesn't have the height that I thought he had. I mean, I was really surprised when he was under 6 foot. I really was. So, all right, let's bring it up. We're going to bring up my wide receiver rankings. Now, these aren't 100% updated. These are from a week ago or so, pre-combine. These are my pre-combine. So can you see him, Chris?
Yeah, I can see him.
Okay. So, there's big guys you're missing here in your top 11. Like George Pickens, like, okay, I get it. You're not a Georgia fan. Okay, dude, I get it. You don't have George Pickens in your top 11, a guy that came back, 6 months later after an ACL injury, ran a really nice 40, looked really good, 6'3", 195. I think he is an excellent route runner, especially getting off the line. He has an amazing release. He can go up and get the ball with speed. George Pickens not in your top 11 is disrespectful. And going down the line a little bit, where's Jahan Dotson? If I could have pointed to one guy that you were high on, it would be Jahan Dotson, and I don't see him in your top 11 unless I missed it, Chris. What's going on here? Jahan Dotson is everything that you kind of are saying with Olave. I mean, a fantastic route runner, except he can go up and get the ball, where Olave is more of a create separation and run after catch. Jahan Dotson can do that and go get the ball. I don't see a David Bell who didn't test well, but is fantastic, just a player. And Christian Watson's fantastic.
Jahan Dotson's at 13. I've got him as more of like a little bit of a speedier Deontay Johnson. I think it's kind of what he profiles as. I think to be a solid. I think he can be a solid number 2 receiver in this league. And then I've got David Bell right behind him at 14. I'm not a huge David Bell guy. George Pickens at 12. Look, I love George Pickens. I think he, as far as if this was a ranking of ceilings, George Pickens would probably be number 1. Like I think George Pickens has the highest ceiling out of any receiver in this class.
If it's not Chris, then what are we doing?
Well, because it's not
I
based
mean,
purely on ceiling. There's
it's
questions about
not based just on ceiling, but if he could be your number one wide receiver, how is he not in your top fucking 11?
because
If he
he's
has the number one ceiling.
because there's questions about his maturity and there's questions about his health. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. This is a guy that was getting the hype coming into Georgia. He was supposed to be. Remember, Georgia has not had an AJ Green since AJ Green. Never. Not since AJ Green have they had AJ Green. He was supposed to be the guy. Now he's the closest that they've had, but that he wasn't it. He was unreliable. He made some dumb mistakes. He's just there are some questions with George Pickens. Are the physical tools there? Yes, but there are other concerns. Now, again, these are pre-draft rankings. Okay. Are these going to change when we find out where they go? Absolutely. So if George Pickens winds up playing across the field from Kyle Pitts, well, there you go. Now Atlanta's got their alpha receiver one at the receiver position, right? So that's going to change a lot of things, right? So that's going to make some things different and change some stuff. So right now, that's where I have George Pickens. But to me, I just like on film. I like a lot of these guys a lot more. You talked about Christian Watson. You got Christian Watson way too low. Christian Watson.
This was actually, Chris. This was pre-Senior Bowl. This was pre-Senior Bowl. He moved up into
Even by the film.
Actually, my tier. I was late to it. It's North Dakota State. I mean, they're the Alabama of their division. I mean, they really are. It's hard to find a game where Christian Watson, he needed to make a 3rd and 5 in the 4th quarter to solidify a win. You're not finding that. You better catch it in the 1st quarter because they're running the ball in the 2nd half. So I was a little late to him, but watching his Senior Bowl, his size, his speed, and then the combine, he torched it. He's probably my wide receiver 11 or 10 right now. So these are not updated. I'm just giving you a little bit of sense of how I was feeling, but I'm not grading Christian Watson so much on his film because he is superior athletically. His team is far superior, and it's not much to really graze on. I mean, it's just not there. Like, okay, he caught a screen pass, and he looked amazing right there against sub-level competition, and he didn't play a real NFL corner. I can't get too excited about that, even though that's what we have to do here. I did go back and catch a lot more tape after the Senior Bowl than I had saw before, so I'm not going to lie. He moved up my rankings. It's part of the process. He's not a tier 1 guy for me. Give me a George Pickens over him, but he's not far behind. I think he's going to be a lot more raw. They were using him. I'm so sick of saying it. They were using him like a Deebo Samuel. They're running reverses with him. They're throwing him screens. He's an athletic. I mean, he's gifted athletically. Why would they not get him the ball in every which way? The coach is smart, but that's not going to be his role every day in the NFL.
There's a word for that, Zach. It's dynamicism. Like he is dynamic. And that's why his NFL comp is Donovan Peoples-Jones. They're the same player. They are the same player, from measurables to athletic ability to combine results to play style, what you see on film. They do it all. Returns, receiving, end arounds. Like, you can move him all over the field, and he is more physically gifted than almost anybody he's going to go up against. The only difference between the two is that Donovan Peoples-Jones had Shea Patterson throwing him the football in college, and Christian Watson had a lot more consistency under center getting him the football. So I think Christian Watson, to me, that is who he profiles as. He is going to have zero problem getting on the football field and showing what he can do, simply because he contributes everywhere. You can run the ball with him if you want to do some of those end arounds, which I cannot stand the end around play. But teams run it. They run it a lot. They're going to be able to do that with him. He's going to be able to win downfield, excellent body control, some of the best body control and sideline awareness in this entire class. He goes up and wins one-on-ones. He's got great size. He's a speedster, so he's got that breakaway speed. He's got really all the tools that you want out of a receiver. I think the biggest question, you kind of touched on it, competition. And that's going to be the question for all these FCS, Division II sort of receivers. What is the competition on the other side of the ball that you're going up against? We're going to find out. But the difference with Christian Watson between a guy that just does one thing and stays on the outside and plays wide receiver, is that he's going to get on the field because he can do everything that you ask him to on the football field. So he's going to touch the football and he's going to learn these things quickly as he goes. So he's going to be on the field from day one, I think, no matter where he ends up, because he fits any offense, because you can do so much with him. So that's another reason why I love Christian Watson. I think sky's the limit for that guy.
I love that you just said Sky. What's your thoughts on Sky Moore? He's a guy that's very like raw. He did not play wide receiver in high school, and I had to go back on the film on him a lot. But
Yeah.
damn, he looked crisp running at the combine. This is a guy that, like, I think he had like the second or third biggest hands at 5'11" at the combine. He reminds me a lot of Golden Tate after the catch. He is tough. He runs really hard, and he's a guy, I think his best football is ahead of him. I was a little late to the party. I even said it. I tweeted it the other day. I was like, hey, y'all were late on Sky Moore, or you were too low on Sky Moore. And guess what? I'm y'all. I was too low on him. I had to go do my research, and he's a guy that I think the sky is the limit, so to speak. He can be a Golden Tate type slot receiver who he's going to go day two. I'm really surprised you didn't have him higher.
Yeah, I think he can be a good player, but I think he's going to be more of a complementary piece on an offense. I think he's going to do a lot of the same type of stuff and be good at the same type of stuff that a guy like Rondale Moore will be. Like, I think that's a lot of fantasy heads are probably watching. I don't think you need to be drafting Sky Moore in the second round of your rookie draft thinking, oh my God, he's about to be in for some heavy fantasy football. No, he's not going to be. I think he's going to be sort of that Rondale Moore, sort of kind of KJ Hamler type of player, where he may have some big games and do some big things on the field, but it's not going to be very consistent week to week. But I think he's going to be better in real life than he is in like fantasy, if we're talking fantasy.
I think he's more well-rounded. I don't know if you're giving him credit. I think he's a little bit more well-rounded. He's bigger. He has longer arms. He's more prototypical wide receiver. Rondell is just so damn small. Kind of the problem I have with Wandale Robinson, a guy that's electric,
Same
but
thing.
He's so small.
Agree.
He can't do. I think Sky has the ability to win outside, even though he's probably going to master the slot. I don't see these 5'7" guys being able to win on the outside.
100%. No.
I think Sky has a lot of Tyler Lockett in him. Now, Tyler Lockett had Russell Wilson before the trade and everything. That I think he has a guy that's 5'10" and a half, 5'11" who can play outside. You want him in the slot more than the outside, but he can win on the outside.
I can see Tyler Lockett. I like that. I like that. The biggest thing I like about Sky Moore more than anything is I like the fact that he catches away from his frame. He's not a body catcher, especially with his size. He's not a body catcher, which I think is a really, really good attribute, and I love that in receivers. So that's my favorite thing about Sky Moore, but I do like what you said about Tyler. He can develop into a guy like Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, the future's bright. We have not seen the best of him because this is a guy that wasn't playing wide receiver 3 seasons ago. He wasn't, and coming out of Western Michigan, you get a little bit of the talent concerns of who he's going against, but he put on a show in 2021, and I thought maybe he'd go back and and that's because I was a little bit lower on him, but I was like, damn, no, he made the right decision. He's going to get day 2 capital, and watch out for him. So let's hear it. You're going to have to sell me on Dontario Drummond and Alec Pierce, even though he tested out of this world. A couple of these guys that you have in your top 10 ahead of Sky Moore, George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, you're going to have to play lawyer here, and you're going to have to sway the jury on this, because I think you're a little out of line on it, because Dontario Drummond is not doing it for me. I'm sorry.
Look, Dontario Drummond, I think, is a good, solid football player. He's going to have a place in this league. One of the things he is going to have to work on is like seasoning his route tree. But where have we heard that before? DK Metcalf. No, he's not DK Metcalf. He's not anywhere close to that. But I'm in comparison to that, people were like, "Oh my God, he's not going to succeed in the NFL because he doesn't run routes like Antonio Brown." It was always ridiculous from the get-go. That's what wide receiver coaches are for. So that wide receivers will learn that. That will expand. Especially, it's going to have to, because the way he's going to play, he's like a big slot receiver. I think he's He's in that sort of Tyler Boyd sort of mold. Now, he's not, I think he's a little bit bigger than Tyler Boyd. I don't know if he's necessarily as talented as Tyler Boyd, but I think he's a sure-handed receiver. We saw him make some great plays at Ole Miss. He was Matt Corral's guy. And I remember being asked before the season, who is the wide receiver at Ole Miss to watch if there is one? I said, Dontario Drummond. And from game one, week one, Dontario Drummond was really that guy for Ole Miss. I think he does a lot of great things. I don't think he's going to be great in press coverage, so I don't think he's going to succeed very much on the outside. I think if you use him as a bigger slot receiver, that's where he's going to win. He's going to win against these nickel corners who they're a little bit faster than him, I think, but he's going to be able to overwhelm them with more size and strength and his sure-handedness. So I'm not, again, just because Dontario Drummond's in my top 10 doesn't mean that I think he's going to be some world beater. I don't necessarily think that, but I think he's going to have a place in the NFL for quite a while if he can season and expand that route tree a little bit.
So you're telling me he's limited. You need to throw him in the slot, and you have your number one overall ceiling play of George Pickens behind him.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure, because Dontario Drummond's not struggling with injuries. He doesn't have a maturity issue.
I mean, it's not like George Pickens got accused of rape here. Like I know he had some issues. I mean, he really has, and he had an ACL injury and everything like that. But I'm not seeing like any type of ceiling here. Like I'm seeing 6th round, Chris, and you have him ahead of first round players. Like Dontario Drummond came out of nowhere. Like even in like deep 45-man campus to Canton leagues, like he went undrafted in those leagues, and he came out and he had a nice season. I think you're just a little puppy dog love because of your Matt Corral tape. No. He was Matt Corral's number one guy, and you saw a lot of things. I think when you were watching stuff that you liked with Matt Corral, he was throwing the ball to Dontario Drummond. So I get it, but talking NFL prospect wise, I can't get behind him being a top 15 wide receiver in this class. I can't get it. He has the size. I'll give him that, but you already said he's limited on the outside.
Sure, but
we're talking about
he's limited.
A 4'6" guy that's limited.
Yeah,
who has nice size that can't win on the outside. I don't know.
This is another thing, Zach. This is another thing. He is. You talk about a 4'6" guy. He's not a 4'6" guy on film. You watch the film, he's consistently making explosive plays and outrunning defensive backs. Consistently. So I don't want to hear this Jarvis Landry ran a 4'7". Again, it's the Jarvis Landry syndrome here. I don't think that we're looking at we're not looking at a guy that is super explosive, okay? But that's fine. Like, he's explosive enough. He's not going to go on the outside and win in a bunch of one-on-one man coverage against, Jalen Ramsey. That's not what he's going to do. He is going to beat people up on the inside because he's bigger, stronger, and faster than most of those guys that he's going to be facing on the inside. He's going to create those mismatches and be an explosive guy. He is going to annihilate zone coverage. He catches away from his frame. He plucks the ball out of the air with his hands. He wins those one-on-one matchups when it out of zone coverage, if that makes sense. So he's got a lot of good, solid. What's the word I'm looking? Steady. He's like more of a steady. He's low key. He's not like some hype machine or anything like that. He's not gonna wow you and he's not like a Lamborghini. He's going to be more like a
Toyota Camry.
A Ford Explorer. He is going to be a very solid, reliable piece of equipment that is going to do a lot of good things for you and get you where you want to go. Dontario Drummond's going to be in this league for a while, and I think he's going to be sort of in that Tyler Boyd mold. Tyler Boyd doesn't blow you away, but he's reliable and he gets things done. And I think that's what that's what you're getting with Dontario
Chris,
Drummond.
I have the perfect Dontario Drummond comp. Perfect. And you're going to love it.
I have a feeling I'm not, but.
And it's not Tyler Boyd. That'll be a different day. He reminds me a lot of Keelan Doss.
Oh, here we go.
A wide receiver that has really nice size, that's not athletic enough to win on the outside, who looks really good in the slot, who is going to go undrafted. and probably be a practice squad
He's
player.
not going undrafted. Dontario Drummond's not
He
going.
reminds me a lot of Keelan Doss, and it makes a lot of sense why you like him, because I compared Keelan Doss to Mohamed Sanu, and Dontario Drummond reminds me a lot of Mohamed Sanu, a big player that can play in the slot that isn't skillful enough to win on the outside. And if you have a really good quarterback, he can pepper him a little bit, and he'll probably have like 58 receptions for 575 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that's nice and all, but you have to have that role. I don't know. There's so many wide receivers that have come into the NFL in the last 3, 4, 5 years, including this draft class. I don't know if Dontario Drummond is going to be talented enough to make a roster and make an impact on a roster, because I don't know if he can break the depth chart.
Well, time will tell. And look, this is and I've been saying it for over a year. This is a receiver class. Like, you hear a bunch of guys that, in dynasty leagues that we're in, and they're like, I'll sell my 2022 picks for 2023 picks because it's a great class. 2022 is not a great class. I don't know what's not a great class about it. You've got a couple quarterbacks that could be franchise guys. You've got some really good talent at running back, and you've got an immense amount of talent at wide receiver. It's a wide receiver class, that's for sure. But I don't think.
I think that's why it's a subpar class, because wide receivers they usually take a little time to create the fantasy stats, the production.
Yeah.
And wide receivers kind of like I just said it, like the influx of talent at the wide receiver position, it's year in, year out. I mean, I can talk about 10 guys in the 23 class. So that's maybe why the wide receivers headline the class, why people are a little bit more down on the class, because there isn't 5 quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round, and there's not Najee, Etienne, and Javonte Williams of last year and everything like that. And then they don't have a top 10 wide receiver. The wide receiver class is really nice, but there's not the Jamar Chase. There's not the Devontae Smith. There's not the Jalen Waddle. There's not the Kayshon Boutte from LSU next year, Jackson Smith and Jigba. There's not those type of guys in this class, but it's really, really solid from like 15 to like 50 overall ranked players. You just don't have those top 4 guys. So one last guy I want to hear you're going to have to sell him on, and it's Romeo and Juliet. Romeo Doubs, your wide receiver 4, a guy I like.
Romeo Doubs.
He's in my tier 3, right behind Christian Watson, Sky Moore, Jalen Tolbert. He's right along those. I think he's a guy that is going to have some production. I don't have a great comparison for him right now. I haven't gone through and done that, but he's a guy that can be a really solid wide receiver 3. Maybe his ceiling. I'll give you a ceiling play. Maybe Michael Gallup could be his ceiling play. But he's a little bit farther down my list. I can't have him in the top tier ahead of Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, Drake London, that type of crowd. So sell me on some Romeo Doubs, and let me know how he breaks himself apart from the guys that are behind him.
Yeah, he's my number 4 receiver in this class. He does everything. He does everything you want a receiver to do. He wins on the outside. He's explosive. He's a burner, so he'll beat you deep. He's got great body control, sideline awareness. We just talked about that with Christian Watson. Goes up and wins the one-on-one balls. And we talked about the dynamic nature of Christian Watson. This is another guy that can do it all. He was doing it on returns at Nevada. He was getting handed the ball off in the backfield, and of course playing receiver. Like, this is a guy that wins on the outside. Do I think in the NFL that Romeo Doubs will turn into a guy like AJ Brown that will win one-on-ones against and be consistently facing the cornerback 1 for every opposing team? I don't necessarily believe that. Do I think he could? Yes. Maybe not right away. I think he could. I'm not forecasting that. I'm more so forecasting Romeo Doubs being more of a like a beta receiver, or a rock solid high end wide receiver 3 on a football team. I've got him. His comparison, he plays a lot like Zay Jones. Zay Jones was very, very good at East Carolina. We know that. Very seasoned player coming out of East Carolina. And Zay Jones has made a nice little career for himself. He's never really had the opportunity to be that number 1 guy with the places that he's been. But he's always been pretty steady and shown a lot of talent wherever he's gone and been pretty reliable. I think that's what Romeo Doubs can be. I think he'll be better than Zay Jones, but I think he'll be more of a more of a beta wide receiver too, that you kind of move all around the formation, do a bunch of different things with him, and kind of be like a nice little toy for an offensive mastermind. You know what I mean? And so I think someone like that, I think he'd fit very well for a team like Minnesota. A guy like Kevin O'Connell, I think, with that sort of offensive mind and that playmaking, I think that Romeo Doubs would fit very well on a team like Minnesota. Not going to be the number one guy, but could be a rock solid number two guy and even play some number three with KJ Osborne across from him. I really like Romeo Doubs. A lot of people are not familiar with him because he played at Nevada, and their games kicked off at 10:30 at night here on the East Coast. So the majority of the country is not paying any attention to guys at Nevada like Carson Strong and Romeo Doubs. So these are guys that you really got to kind of dig into. But I think he's a guy that brings every single aspect of a receiver that you want. Romeo Doubs does it, and he's proven it year in and year out in his college career. So if you want a guy that's just going to be freaking rock solid for you, with a ceiling that could be pretty high, that does it all, Romeo Doubs is your guy.
And we're watching a little bit of highlights right here for everybody watching during the stream. And, it is nice. And every single throw, I like Carson Strong a little bit more. If God could have gave that guy some feet.
Some wheels, oh, God.
I mean, we're talking a elite arm strength.
He'd be my number one quarterback. If he had wheels, Zach, he'd be my number one quarterback.
If Desmond Ridder had his arm talent, he'd be my number one quarterback. The sky's the limit with that guy. If he could work, if he could just gain some athleticism, and obviously you're not doing it that at this stage of the game. You're not going to get faster.
Carson Strong, real quick, he reminds me of Zach Mettenberger a lot. You know what I mean? And Zach never made it in the NFL, and a lot of that's because of the stuff that happened and all that. And he never really got a good chance on a good team. But yeah, I think he has a lot of play of Zach Mettenberger.
And like Romeo's solid, man. Don't get me wrong. Like I just don't have him in my tier one. He's just a guy that I'm hoping. I like the Zay Jones comparison. I think he's a little bit more. He's a little bit more go get it guy, a little bit contested catch guy. When Zay Jones, I think, is a little bit better after the catch. Romeo can do it after the catch, but we're watching it like right there. That's a great play right there. Back of the corner, he beats his guy and he jumps over him, and he has really long arms. Senior Bowl, he got fronted a little bit on press coverage. I was a little worried about it, but he tested really well. And this is a guy that I like my Michael Gallup comp. I think I'm going to keep that. He might not be as physical as Michael Gallup. I mean, Gallup's a physical freak. He really is.
Yeah.
But I like the size, and they come out of the same conference, so I'm gonna stick with that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pat myself on the back.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Michael Gallup, it was my ceiling comp. I mean, I think that's his ceiling, and we're basically on the same path. Though his ceiling is a wide receiver 2, probably going to be a really nice wide receiver 3, maybe what James Washington was supposed to be for Pittsburgh, but he never became that type of player. Get him with a good quarterback. I mean, you could see some really good production. I do not hate Romeo Doubs. I like some guys. I don't think he's in the same tier athletically, and I don't know. I think we might have seen I think he's a finished product. Like we're talking about Christian Watson, not a finished product at all. Treylon Burks, not a finished product. I think you got everything out of Romeo Doubs in college, which that's okay. Some players are define themselves coming into the league. Some players haven't, and they have raw ability. And I think exactly what he is, and he's a really nice player. I mean, I'm not going to hate Romeo Doubs, except maybe ahead of Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, and Drake London.
Yeah,
look, I mean, those are the 5-star prospects of this class.
I don't hate the Gallup, the sort of the Gallup thing there. I think Gallup is more physical, 100%. But I think Romeo's more dynamic, and I think he's dynamic in the way that like a Brandon Ayuk is. I think Brandon Ayuk's going to be a great wide receiver 2, and all around weapon for an offense. I think Romeo Doubs can be that. You know what I mean? Like that's the type of player that I think you're getting. I think Romeo is more dynamic than Zay Jones as well. But I think as a wide receiver, a beta wide receiver 2, I just don't know if you're going to find very many better options than a guy like Romeo Dubs, who doesn't really have anything that he really needs to work on. He is a finished product. So yeah, I think we're pretty much spot on there.
Before we go, and we're going on 2 hours, man. This has been really fun, and goddamn, every time we get on the mic, I think it's hard to keep us off under 2 hours. It really is,
Yeah.
man. There's few other people that can go like you can, and I respect the hell out of it. Anybody we haven't talked to, any sleepers that I haven't mentioned, that's not in your top 11.
I mean, not really. I
A
mean,
a lot of people are excited about Calvin Austin. I mean, he's the Rondell Moore type that he might get some higher draft capital than I thought he was going to have. But 5'7", I think he's a pretty legit 4.3 guy. I don't know if 4.32 is what he ran. He's a legit 4.3 type. So small though. He's so small, but I mean, crispy route tree. This is a guy that at 5'7" it's hard for you to win on the outside, but that was his game. He didn't play a ton in the slot at Memphis. He was winning on the outside. He wasn't just a gimmick player either, using that speed. A lot of people are excited about him.
Yeah, I think Jahan Dotson is probably outside of my top 11. Obviously, I think he's a clear choice there. But if we're talking about like a deep dark horse that I think could really, if he lands in a good spot, and maybe like a Jacksonville where there's not a lot of great competition, I think a guy like Ty Freifogel, just based on what he did in college, I think Ty could be a guy that could really make an impact at the NFL level. So, I mean, if I'm looking at a deep dark horse wide receiver out of this class, I think it's going to be Ty. I think his hype and his draft stock has maybe slipped a little bit, but I think day 3, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of wide receivers better than him on day 3.
I can buy that. And this is a guy I thought it was going to come out after 2020. Go back to the 2020 Ohio State game. It was bad. I mean, he was killing Ohio State in that game. I think he had like 3 touchdowns, 200 something yards. He was nasty, and I was really disappointed. I think he got hurt on his first 40-yard run, and we didn't get to see him in any of the drills, so I was a little disappointed. But he has nice size. He reminds me a lot of Romeo Dubs. I think their games mirror each other a lot. Not elite speed or anything but good enough speed, and they go and get the ball, so they remind me of each other a lot. I'll give you one. Makai Polk, transfer, Mississippi State, had over 1,000 yards. I think he was second team SEC last year. Came out of nowhere. Everybody thought it was going to be Jalen, I can't think of his name right now. Not Jalen Waddle. Everybody thought he wasn't. He came out of nowhere and became the number 1 wide receiver for a pass happy Mike Leach Mississippi State team. And he's a guy that does have good size, 6'3", long arms, 190 pounds. I think he's very raw, and he has the upside. He's not a finished product. And he could be a guy 2-3 years down the line that a 5th round pick turned into something, kind of like Darnell Mooney was. I think Makai Polk, he could possibly be that guy this season.
Yeah, another guy that I'd like to touch on before we bow out here is Justin Ross. This is, I mean, what a fall from grace, right? Like you just don't hear anything about. This is a guy when he was a freshman, we're like wide receiver 1, and whenever he declares, like Justin Ross has got a lot of talent.
I compared him to Julio Jones. I compared him to Julio Jones. His freshman season, I was amazed. I thought he was top 5, not wide receiver, top 5 overall. I'm with you, Chris. He was Julio Jones comp. I was 100%, and then he got the injury, and it was a bad injury. I mean, if I had a neck injury, I might not walk. I mean, he came out and he pussyfooted around in 2021, and I didn't like it, and I didn't see the same raw ability. I didn't see the same burst, but I did see the go up and get it. You did see him above the rim.
Mike Williams
making plays, but there's a lot of plays he left on the field. The consistency I'm really worried about, and maybe it's a bad taste in my mouth from being so high on him, and so maybe I'm a touch low on him. I have him in my tier 3, right around the Christian Watson. So guys that can go out and look amazing. I'm worried about the consistency, and I'm worried about that injury, and if it's in his head a little bit, because he was kind of dogging it a little bit when Clemson was struggling this year. And the quarterback play wasn't good. The offense was bad. But I mean, I think you're spot on because the ceiling, he raised that ceiling to epic proportions, and after the injury, he left me wanting so much more.
Yeah, no, he really did. But I think if he falls into the right spot, again, I think a Jacksonville would be an interesting spot for him. Again, the quality competition really to me isn't there. So I think that would be an easy depth chart to climb. I think he could be a scary thought in Kansas City. He wouldn't have to be the number one guy, wouldn't be number one or number two on the target totem pole. But I think, a team like that where the pressure isn't really on and he doesn't have to be like day one, be the number one guy. I think that would be good as well. And I think a team maybe like the Raiders are going to be looking for a guy like Justin Ross as well. So we'll see what happens with him. But I at least wanted to kind of give him a little bit of spotlight.
No, we didn't get to him, and of course, we're not going to get to everybody, even in a 2 hour draft preview. Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
But I mean, the potential's there. He's going to go day two. I mean, he's gonna get himself a chance. I mean, he's gonna have every opportunity in the world to prove that his freshman season wasn't a fluke, and he still has the measurables, and he still has that raw ability and talent that you cannot reproduce. Like we're talking about some of the undersized guys, like Calvin Austin or something. Like, no, this guy's the legitimate 6'4", 210 pounds, can jump over you, can run past you. The consistency is not there. And I'm a little bit worried if the injury was either in his head or he was just kind of, half-assing it a little bit in 21 because everything wasn't going great. Clemson's been so dominant for so long. And then you had a season where it kind of just, it wasn't there. It didn't click on offense. And, I just didn't, you'd see him make a great play and then you'd see him drop an easy one or kind of not go out and try his all. And it's just stuff I look for when I'm looking at these prospects. The last thing you ever want to see a guy like, last thing about a prospect that you want to say about it is like, I think he left a little bit on the field.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about some of these running backs that use like Tyler Beatty. Like you get everything out of him every single play. And it's like Justin Ross, he had you wanting so much more.
Yeah, he did. So we'll see what happens at the NFL level, but I think he's a guy that he's probably going to go on day 3 now, and maybe 4th round, and I think he could be a steal. I think he could be a steal.
He'd be a steal in round 4, even if you only caught 45 balls. Like I think he'll still go. I think he'll still go day 2. And how about I'm gonna put it out there. How about he goes to Atlanta? I think you'd be happy with that 3rd round pick. I think that'd be a situation where he could come in and be really productive.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. The only thing is I feel like right off the bat, I mean, he would have to produce right off the bat because Olamide Zaccheaus just isn't it. We all love Oz, but Oz is, he's a wide receiver 3. That's what he's meant to be. We got to have a guy who can make an instant impact as our wide receiver 1 that can take legitimate pressure off of Kyle Pitts. That's why I'm saying if we were able to trade back into the 1st round and get a guy like Chris Olave or Treylon Burks or someone like that, I'm going to be thrilled because those are guys instantly that you're like, okay, we can no longer bracket double coverage Kyle Pitts. We got to pay attention here. That's Justin Ross to me right off the bat isn't that guy. But you know what? Look, if we're getting him in the 4th round, I ain't going to argue with it. I love it. So it just depends on where he goes, I think.
Good stuff. We're gonna have to probably end it now. Is there a tight end other than Trey McBride that you like?
No.
There you go.
That's
Trey McBride is going to be a 2nd round pick. He's going to be a nice tight end. He's a little raw, but it's a class that's very underwhelming. You're going to see a bunch of guys drafted between pick like 60 and 110, but they're going to be your tight end 2s and guys that maybe just need to develop a little bit. It's not a great tight end class, and don't look forward to drafting tight ends in your fantasy drafts. It's just not going to happen. So we went on for 2 hours, draft preview. We did the scouting combine review and told you how much bullshit it was, and you don't need to worry about it too much. Go watch your film. Don't just watch highlights, even though I was showing highlights. We don't have time to break down all the film, but go watch real film. before you watch the highlights and before you check somebody off just because they ran a fast 40. That is not going to produce in the NFL. Chris, before we go, buddy, tell everybody where to find you when the podcast is coming back. Where's Mark Weckman? Is this guy alive? Like, I haven't seen him on social
Yeah,
media, I think,
Mark's
since.
Mark's coming back. We're coming back. We'll be getting some stuff here probably in the next few weeks, getting started for the season. But yeah, you can find us at the Roto Bros Fantasy Football Podcast. We're on all major podcast platforms. If you're watching, you see the panel here behind me. So just look for that logo and you'll be good to go. You can also find me on Twitter at Wizard of Roto, and you can also check out the Roto Bros Fantasy Lounge going to patreon.com/Roto Bros. And what that is, Zach, is this is the best place to get fantasy football advice. Like you lineup setups, lineups. You can get we will set your lineups for you. Let me try to get that out here. We do fantasy baseball, basketball. We even do some hockey. We do DFS. So if you want to win some cash, betting, DFS, all kinds of stuff, we have a channel for literally everything. So definitely check that out. That is patreon.com/RotoBros. It's $2 a month. And guess what? Everybody gets the first 2 months free. So definitely check that out.
Good shit. Hey, Fantasy Football Expo, Canton, August. Will I see you there? Are you going to try to make it?
I would love to try to make it. It's in the plan, so hopefully both Mark and I can both represent the Roto Bros up there. It'd be a lot of fun.
Second week in August, Canton, Ohio. There is a bunch going on there, Chris. You're not going to want to miss it. There's a flag football game. There's a poker tournament. I work with Bob Long since I'm local in Canton, putting on the event. There is a party like you would never believe, like how these people get crazy. Like everybody says the fantasy nerds and everything like that. I couldn't believe how hard they were partying, and it was a great time, and I will be a part of it. And it's something, if you can make it to Canton for that weekend, Chris, you won't want to miss it. You have to make one of them. They're getting bigger every year. 3 years ago, there was I think 125 people. Last year, there was 300, 400, I think. And then this year, they're expecting almost double. It's actually going to be in the Hall of – they built a dome next to the Hall of Fame. And that's where they're going to have the flag football game. It's going to be refereed. Oh, man. It's going to be a great time. I'd love to see Chris McConnell there. But this has been Roster Rescue. We got to go, man. We could keep talking forever. We got to go. So everybody out there, find me at Zack Zander on Twitter. Find me, Roster Rescue, on all of the podcast platforms, and hit a DM up. I will always answer back and give you my response. And it might not be what you like, though, because I'm a little brash. But anyway, find me, find Chris, Roto Bros. It's been great, Chris. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.